Good day. I'm now recording the Navi Shir for tomorrow, Tuesday. In Navi, we're doing Shir Hashirim. It's very appropriate to do Shir Hashirim because Shir Hashirim is what we read on Shabbos Cholamoid Pesach. I saw something interesting in the introduction of the Sefer that I use, Skulas Yisrael from Moshe Kanner. Someone wrote that the minhag is to read Shir Hashirim on Shabbat Chol HaMoed Pesach. For those of you that know, Shabbat was Niskadesh by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God was Mekadesh HaShabbat. Yom Tov is Niskadesh by the people. When Beis Din declares Rosh Chodesh, so then Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Thursday, and then 15th of Nisan becomes Yom Tov. So Yom Tov is Niskadesh by man. Shabbos is Niskadesh by God. The Shir Hashirim is a love song between Hashem and the Bnei Yisrael. In Golus, the Bnei Yisrael reach out and long to be reunited with God, and God reaches out and longs for us. Therefore, it's very appropriate to read it on Shabbat Chol HaMoed Pesach, because it has the Shabbat, which is what God gave to the Jewish people, and it has also Chol HaMoed, which is Yom Tov, which the Jewish people created. So on the day when these two things bond and combine, we read the Shir Hashirim, the two-way communication between Hashem and the Bnei Yisrael. In our last parak, at the end of Parak Beis, the last pasuk had to do with when we sent the Meraglim, and all of a sudden there was a chasm, there was a split between the Bnei Yisrael and Hashem. If you remember, we discussed it looked like a chasm. It's very, very deep, and the two cliffs on the two sides of the chasm are seemingly close to each other, but yet in order to get from one to the other, you have to go all the way down and all the way up. And we were longing for God. For 38 and a half years, it's a Rashi in this week's Parsha, beginning of this week's Parsha, it says, Leimor, Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Jews, I only speak to you, Moshe, when the Jews merit. And after the Jews sent the Meraglim, and for 38 and a half years they were dying in the desert, Hashem never, Vaidaber Hashem al Moshe, Hashem never spoke to Moshe. So that means that Hashem only speaks to Moshe when the Jews merited. And when the Jews lost it, Moshe lost it. So we start with Perek Gimel, Al Mishkavi Baleilot. I was on my bed at night, Bikashti, looking, Eshahava Nafshi, longing for what my soul loves. Bikashtiv V'lo Matzasiv, I looked and could not find. Rashi says, Al Mishkavi Baleilot. I don't know how many of you have Rashi in front of you, so I'll just translate short Rashi's word for word. Al Mishkavi Baleilot, on my bed at night when I was suffering, I sat in the dark for 38 years. The Jews were banished. I seeked and I couldn't find. Pasuk says, Ki eineni b'kir b'chem. Hashem says, I'm not in your midst. Hashem says, Ki lo ele b'kir b'cha. I shall not go in your midst. When we got to Har Sinai before, Hashem says, Kumilach, rise, rise and shine. Now, after we send Mishkavi, we do not rise, we lie down. At Matan Torah, we merited light, and now when God is not speaking to us, it's the night. Al Mishkavi Baleilot. We're lying, we're not up, and it's night, and I seek the one my soul loves. I seek communication from God. I seek and cannot find. It's hard to imagine what that means. They just had Har Sinai a year ago. The closest bonding between God and man that can be imagined. God gave of himself to us. He gave us his Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu would go into the Ol Moed, and every time he went into the Ol Moed, God spoke with him, as it says in the beginning of this parsha, Vayikral Moshe, Vaydaber Shem Elov, Me'ol Moed Lemor. And there's a transmitter, and there's a receptor, and there's a waiting audience. and all of a sudden the transmission is cut off. You look to your receiver and there's nothing coming through. Pasuk Beis. Akumana, I try to rise, Vasova Va'ir, and I circle the city, Bashvokim u'barchovot. I go through the markets and the streets. Avaksha eshahava nafshi. I'm looking for what my soul loves. Ikashtiv looking v'lo matzasiv, and I cannot find. Pasagimu mitzauni hashamrim asovim ba'ir. My guards who circle the city found me. Eis shahava nafshi reisem. Did you see the one my soul loves? Rashi. Akumanov avaksha. I rise and I plead. Vaychal Moshe. Moshe pleaded. Moshe went up to Hashem. Mitzuni Hashomrim, who are the Shomrim? Moshe and Aaron, they're the guardians of Israel. Eshahava nafshi rita, have you seen the one my soul loves? Have you heard any communication from God? Akumana, even in the darkness, I try to get up. I try to rise. I try to look. I look to my leaders. I look to Moshe and Aaron. Have you heard anything? Has anything coming through? We never stopped looking. Pasuk Daled, Kemat shavarti mehem. I had almost lost them. It was almost over. Ad shematzasi eshahava nafshi. All of a sudden, the signal came through again. I found the one my soul loves. Achaztiv v'lei arpanu. I'll hold on to it. I won't let it go again. Ad sha'avesiv, I'm going to bring that signal. I'm going to bring that bond with me. El beit imi, to the house of my mother, ve'el cheder horati, and to the chamber of my birth. Next pasuk, Hishbati etchem benot Yerushalayim. I put an oath upon you, daughters of Jerusalem, and we've discussed in the past that the daughters of Jerusalem are the nations of the world. I put an oath upon you, bitzvot or ba'ailot asada. When the redemption comes, you'll be torn apart like deer or hinds in the field. Im ta'iru ve'im ta'oreru. If you try to disturb or to challenge esahava, the love between me and God, acha techpatz, before the time comes. Rashi, kemat shavarti mehem. I had almost lost Moshe and Aaron. It was at the end of the 40 years. At the end of the 40 years, all of a sudden, as Rashi says at the beginning of this week's parsha, he quotes a pasuk that when all the people who needed to die in the Midbar had finished dying, all of a sudden, by Davar Hashem, Elai Hoya Hadibur, Hashem spoke to Moshe again. The signal has returned. Achaz tivelo arpanu. I held on to that faint signal. I held on to it. I don't ever want to lose it again. And I brought it with me as I crossed the Jordan River through the 14 years that we conquered and divided the land until we built Mishkan Shiloh. And in Mishkan Shiloh, again, there was a resting place for God's presence. And once again, for the second time in Shir Hashirim, the Bnei Yisrael, when they reflect and remember these periods of time of our past, the 38 years that we didn't have communication, and then when we got it back, and joyously we entered Israel and reestablished a place of resting for God in Mishkan Shiloh, we again say to the nations of the world, when I reflect on what I have and what I had and what I'm going to have, don't you dare ever try to break the bond between me and God. The pasuk says, Acha matzasi, I found him again. Hashem not only communicated with Moshe Rabbeinu, Acha matzasi, Rashi says, Hashem was with me, with Yeshua, when we went into the land, and during the first 7 years we conquered the 31 kings. That's why the pasuk says in Sefer Yeshua, do not be afraid, ki Hashem Elokecha imcha b'chol asher telech. Hashem is with you wherever you go. Hashem will be with you in your battles. Hashem matzasi, I found him again, he's with me. In Rashi and Tehillim, it seems that the battles against the 31 kings were as miraculous as the exodus of Egypt. So the same way that Hashem was with me when I left Egypt, Hashem was with me when I conquered Israel as well. 3 times during Shir Hashirim, we're going to hear the same pasuk. Hishbati eschem benos Yerushalayim. I adjure you, I put an oath upon you, you nations of the world. Do not try to tear me away from my God. The reason it's 3 times is because every time there's a different recollection. The first time when I recollect how I felt at Matan Torah, what a great moment that was. What a lofty era that was. It was a time of miracles and clear vision of God. And when I think back to that, I say to the nations of the world, now that I'm a Golus, I remember my past. I cherish my past. And when I reflect on my past, don't you dare try to tear me away from my heritage. And once again, after we had 38 years of darkness, and then I remember how happy I was when I regained the light, when I regained the communication, and how happy I was to reinstate God's presence in Shiloh. And I think back to those days, and now I think now when I'm in Golus, don't you dare try to tear me away from my heritage. Don't you dare try to tear me away from my God. I now know how much I appreciated him when I got him back, and I held on so tight that I didn't want to let him go. Shiloh is called El Beis Imi, the house of my mother. Interesting. Moshe Kana wrote that when the nations of the world try to seduce us, to lure us, to join them, to intermingle with them, to intermarry with them, and they offer us all kinds of wealth and riches. At the end of Shir Hashirim it says, Shuvi Shuvi HaShulamit, Shuvi Shuvi Ve'echzebach. Come to us, you perfect one, come to us. We'll make you the regents of our universities, we'll make you the CEOs of our companies. If you just intermingle a little more, if you just assimilate a little more, you'll be able to have so much. And we say to them, you should know, what's important to me is Beis Imi. Child wants the house of the mother. Even if the house of the mother is a lowly hut, but it's the house of its mother. It's worth more than a golden palace. There's nothing you can seduce me with. There's nothing you can lure me with. The house of my mother is more important to me than all. And what is the house of my mother? The house of my mother is the house of God, the Mishkan of Shiloh. Pasuk Vav, powerful words coming up. Mizot olam in Amidbar. Who is this crossing the desert? He's reflecting again on the desert. Ketimrot ashan, they're plumes of smoke. Mukuteret mor ulvana, and they're burning the incense of myrrh and levana. Mikol afkat rochel, incense from all kinds of spices that a spice merchant sells. What's going on? Rashi. When I was going in the Midbar, there was a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud that was going ahead of me, and it killed snakes and scorpions, and it burnt all the thorns and thistles, and it made a straight path so I can pass. And this cloud and this smoke would rise, and the nations would see it like a I'm looking for a word. It's not a cyclone. It's like a tornado. Like a tornado, the people see it high and they're wondering, look how great the Jews are. Wow, Mizot, look what they do going through the Midbar, and look at that pillar of cloud, that plume of smoke that's destroying everything in their path. This pasuk really describes the difference between the way the Gentiles look at us and the way we look at ourselves. If you think deeply into their words, you'll see how they only see a fraction of us. They only see a part of us. They don't really see us. I'm trying to quote Moshe's words. What amazes the nations of the world? What captures their heart when they call out, who is this who's crossing the desert? Rashi says the pillar of fire, the pillar of cloud that kills snakes and scorpions and thorns and thistles. Now certainly these are great things. These are great wonders. They're amazing things. God is carrying us like a father carries a child. But they don't see the love of a father to a child. They see the power of the smashing of the snakes and the scorpions. That's what they see. They see power. They see brutality. What impresses them about Israel? What impresses them about Israel is the Adir, the mighty F-35. What impresses them, the Merkava tank. What impresses them are the Yericho missiles and the rockets and the power. Power is what impresses them. That's what amazes them. And it's true. But do they understand where we got the power from? Do they understand where these plumes of smoke and fire come from? It comes from somewhere else. It comes because inside the Mishkan on a golden Mizbeach there is Ktoret, incense. Incense made of myrrh and levana, incense made of various spices of a spice merchant, incense of the most intimate avoda that the Jewish people ever presented to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Remember we talked about the 5 senses and the sense of smell. When the Kohen was in the Ol Moed bringing Ktoret, there was nobody else there, to him and God, and he's offering incense to Hashem, the incense of smell. It's that connection, that little plume of smoke, that little wisp that comes up from the Ktoret, that's our connection. That connection, it looks so little, but that's the connection that gives us our power. That's what gives us that plume of smoke and that burning flame that smashes everything in front of the Bnei Yisrael as they traveled. But those who only see the surface, only see the surface. They only see the power and the strength. They only see the brutality, the muscle. That's what captures their imagination. But we understand that the source of it all is much deeper. It's the Ktoret from inside the Ol Moed. Pasuk Zayin, Hine mitasa shalish lomo. Let me go over the psukim again, this time according to Pirish. I'm doing it in English. I was on my bed at night during the 38 years, seeking for what I loved, seeking for communication from God, seeking, but I couldn't find it. There was no communication. I kept trying to rise during those years. I kept circling in the city and in the markets and in the streets. I kept going through the camp of Israel, seeking what my soul loves, seeking and not finding, bitterly disappointed. I found the Shomrim, I found Moshe and Aaron in the city, and I said to them, have you found what my soul desires? Are you hearing anything from God? The 40 years almost passed and Moshe and Aaron almost died, and then finally I found it. The signal came back, I found the one my soul loves, and once I found it, I'll hold on to it, and I shall not leave it. I'll bring it to the house of my mother. I'll bring it to Mishkan Shiloh. Mishkan Shiloh was no palace. It was a stone structure with a curtain cover, but it's still the chamber of my birth. This is where I was born, and this is what I love. I love nothing else. And when I think back to the happiness and joy that I had when the communication came back, I once again swear to the nations of the world that you'll be torn apart when Mashiach comes. If you dare challenge, if you dare try to disturb the bond of love that I have with God before the time comes. I know what you nations of the world see. You see me going through the desert with plumes of smoke, smashing snakes and scorpions, blazing a path and showing so much muscle. But what we really have is mukuteret moralvona. What we really have is a wisp of incense made from all kinds of compounds, and that wisp of incense is my bond with God, and my bond with God is what gives me my strength. By the way, we've talked about this in class, that the nations of the world will see that God's name is upon you and fear you. It's not tefillin she al harash, it's tefillin shebarash. The tefillin that you wear on your head symbolizes the tefillin in your head. What do you have in your head? What is your connection with God? And it's that connection with God that gives you the ability to be an eternal people. Hine mitase shel Shlomo, the bed of Shlomo. Shishim giborim sovavla megibore Yisrael. There are 60 giants around it, from the giants of Israel. Kulam achuzei cherev, all of them holding swords. Mulumdei milchama, trained in war. Ish charba al yerecho, each one has his sword by his side. Mipachad baleilot, from fear of the night. One more time. Hine mitase shel Shlomo. This is the bed of Shlomo HaMelech. Shishim giborim savivla, 60 mighty men, 60 valiant heroes around it. Megibore Yisrael, from the heroes of Israel. Kulam achuzei cherev mulumdei milchama, they're holding swords, trained in war. Ish charba al yerecho mipachad baleilot, each one has his sword by his side, fearing the night. Rashi takes it far away. Mitaso shel Shlomo, as we said in the beginning of Shir Hashirim, when it says Shlomo in Shir Hashirim, it means God who is Shalem, the perfect one. And where is the bed of Shlomo? Where is the bed of God? The Ohel Moed, the Aron, that were being carried in the Midbar. Why is it called a bed? Because a bed is where a man and a woman are together, and that's where they create children, they create a family, and the same way the Mishkan was considered a place of creativity, it created growth. Who are the 60 Giborim Savivla? 60 times 10,000 Jews surround the Mishkan. They are in 4 camps to the east, the south, the west, and the north. Each camp is made of 3 Shvatim, totaling 60 times 10,000 Jews. Gibore Yisrael, these are the Gibore Yisrael between 20 and 60, besides for those that are under 20 and yet over 60. But they're trained in war. They're trained in Milchamta Shel Torah. They're trained in the battle of Torah. And the Kohanim, says Rashi, who surrounded the Mishkan, were all trained in the order of their avodah. That's what we're learning now in Parshas HaShavua, Vayikra Tzav Shemini. They knew the avodah takarbanot. Each one had his sword. His sword is his weapon. And his weapon was the symbols that he made, the memory aids that he had, that helped them remember their learning and their tradition they shouldn't forget. Because mipachad baleilo, they were afraid of the night. They were afraid that, God forbid, if trouble ever comes, if tzarot ever comes, they shouldn't forget their Torah, they shouldn't forget their learning. As it says, Nashku bar pen yanaf in Tilim Perik Beit, prepare yourself with weapons, maybe God will scorn and be angry. V'tovdu derech, you might lose your way. All of a sudden, this is a new story. Mitasa shel Shlomo, again, is the Mishkan. The Shishim Giborim are the Jewish people, and the generals, the mighty ones, are the Kohanim. The swords they hold are the memory aids and the things that they use in order to protect their learning, holding their sword by their side, not willing to lose their learning because they're afraid of the night. You see, you Gentiles, you appreciated the power of the killing of snakes and scorpions, the destruction of the thorns and the thistles. What we have is a total different idea. The center of our universe is the Mishkan. Our power, our strength is our ability to retain our Torah. And our ability to retain our Torah is because we work hard trying to retain it. We remember our learning, we review our learning, we make memory aids for our learning. When we fear Galut, what do we fear? We fear that we might forget our Torah. That's what we fear. And in order to protect ourselves from the night that may come, we review our Torah in the good times, so we shouldn't forget it in the hard times. These are the soldiers, the Avdei Hashem, Ha'omdim B'veis Hashem Baleilot. These are the servants of Hashem that stand in the Bati Midrash, Mipachad Baleilot, fearing Galut. If you remember, we talked about the Gemara in Gittin, where the 2 children were attached to a Gentile, a Roman's bed. And what were they afraid of? What troubled them? What troubled them was that they had forgotten a pasuk. What was the first pasuk in Shir Hashirim? Yishakeni min shikot pihu. When we're in Galut, God, please bring the day that Mashiach comes. And so I'll eat grapes, so I'll have somebody waving a fan over me. No, that I'll be able to learn and understand the revelation of Torah that I still don't know. Apiryan Usala HaMelech Shlomo Miatze Alvanon. HaMelech Shlomo, again, God made himself a canopy made of the trees of Lebanon. Amud of its pillars asa kesef were silver, Rifidata Zahav, its bedding was gold. Merkava Argaman, purple is what rode, Tocha, but the inside Rotzef Ahava, the inside was paved with love, Mibnot Yerushalayim, from the Jewish people who fear and are perfect with God. One more time. Apiryan Asalam Melech Shlomo. God made himself a canopy, Miatze Levanon, from Levanon wood. Amud Asa Kesef, he made pillars of silver, Rifidase Zav, a bedding of gold. Merkava, what rode was Argaman, purple, and inside was paved with love, Mibnot Yerushalayim. Rashi says that this canopy was the Ol Moed, which was in the Mishkan. And as I said before, it was made of stone, and it had a canopy of fabric. Refidato, the bedding was gold. That's the cover of the Aron was a solid gold kaporet with kruvim on it. And that was the bedding, so to speak. In this week's parsha, that's where Hashem speaks from that, so to speak, bed on top of the Aron, speaks, and the voice comes from there to Moshe Rabbeinu. The purple is the parochet that was hanging between the Kodesh HaKadoshim and the Ol Moed on poles. But the inside is all paved with love. Bibnot Yerushalayim, the Bnot Yerushalayim here are the Jewish people. It's interesting, we once said that the Bnot Yerushalayim were the nations of the world, because Yerushalayim is really the center. And even the nations of the world are satellites, because if Yerushalayim is the place of justice, when the time will come, all the other nations of the world will be satellites to the city of justice. But we Jews who are closer to Yerushalayim, for sure, we are Benot Yerushalayim. For sure, we are even closer satellites to Yerushalayim. Yes, we know what beauty is. We understand the meaning of beauty. The Mishkan was beautiful, and the Beis Hamikdash was beautiful. The Gemara says in Sukkah, whoever didn't see Yerushalayim b'tifarto, and whoever didn't see Yerushalayim in its glory never saw a beautiful city. Whoever didn't see the Beit HaMikdash in its glory never saw a beautiful Beit HaMikdash. Yes, these are beautiful things that capture the eye, but they capture merely the eye. But through the eye, the message has to enter into the mind and into the heart. Understand what really makes this place work. What makes it work is love. I once explained to you that the reason why the building of the Mishkan is repeated in Truma and in Tetzaveh and Kisisa, Vayakel Pekudei, all the details of how Hashem gave it to Moshe, and Moshe taught it to the Bnei Yisrael, and then the Bnei Yisrael built it, and then they delivered it. It's all repeated again and again and again. Couldn't it have simply said, and Hashem told Moshe to build the following Mishkan, and this is the blueprint, and Moshe taught it to the Jews, then the Jews built it and delivered it, as God commanded? Why did it need to repeat the details again? The answer is deep. The Mishkan was not a structure that was made of wood and gold and silver and copper, because God says, "Ezuhu bayis asher tivnuli." Can you build a house for God? Can God live in a structure? So where does God live? When the Bnei Yisrael built the Mishkan, they built it with love. That's why it says, "V'asuli migdash." They should make for me a holy place, v'shachanti, and I will rest, not in it, but b'tocham, in them. Every Jew who gave to the Mishkan, who wanted to create that place for God's presence, every Jew built a Mishkan. But he built a Mishkan not as a structure on the ground, but he built a Mishkan in his heart. So when God transmits, the transmission would go into the heart of the Jew. And when the Jew prayed, he prayed from his heart to God. And this connection, this bond was created because of the will and the love that the Bnei Yisrael built the Mishkan with. So when Hashem taught it to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu heard that we're going to build a Mishkan, and it was an amazing thing. I taught you this in class. Har Sinai was a place where God came to the Jewish people. God taught us Torah. He bonded with us from God to man. And that's where we stood and we brought korbanos to God, from man to God. And it was a great moment. It was a great opportunity. It was a two-way bonding. But what God gave us afterwards, when He gave us a Mishkan, says the Ramban, He gave us a mobile Har Sinai that would travel with us wherever we go. What we had for the time being at Har Sinai, we now had wherever we went. It was a mobile Har Sinai. When Moshe Rabbeinu heard from God that He's giving us this mobile Har Sinai, He's giving us a mobile Shechina, he accepted the words of God with such enthusiasm and such love that was the first stage of the building of the Mishkan. And the second stage, when he told the Bnei Yisrael that God not only has forgiven us for the Chet HaEgel, but He's giving us a Mishkan to travel with us wherever we go, the Bnei Yisrael heard the words of Moshe with love and enthusiasm. And when they built, it was Nediv Libo, it was willingness of the heart, it was Nisa'o Libo, it was with elevated hearts, with song and joy, they built the Mishkan. And that was the third stage of building of the Mishkan. And when they delivered it to Moshe with trembling hearts, with shaking legs, they hoped and wondered that actually what they created would be accepted by God. And Moshe Rabbeinu blessed them, as it says in Pekudei, V'hinoam Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu, the sweetness of God should come upon you, Umasa Yadenu Konanehu, and the work of our hands should be well accepted by God. And then in Parsha Shmini, when the fire came down from heaven on the Mizbeach, and Vayironu, the people sang, what did they sing about? Did they sing that God knows how to make lightning bolts of fire come from the sky? No, they sang that all of their love and all of their efforts and all of their enthusiasm was accepted by God, and God forgave them for the ego, and God would truly rest within the Bnei Yisrael. That's called Tocha Rotzef Ahava. The place was paved with love. It was 4 floors of love, 4 levels of love that built the Mishkan. It wasn't wood, it wasn't copper and silver and gold. Those were merely the outside symbols. The inside was the Jewish people's hearts. Pasuk Yud Aleph, last pasuk of the Perek. Tzena ur'ena benot Tzion. Go and see daughters of Tzion, b'melech Shlomo. Go see Melech Shlomo, God. Ba'atorah she'itra lo imo, the crown that his mother made for him. B'yom chatunato, on the day of his wedding. U'b'yom simchat libo, on the day that his heart rejoiced. One more time? Very difficult. Tzena ur'ena benot Tzion. You, Benot Tzion, go and see Melech Shlomo. Go see Melech Shlomo. See Ba'atorah, the crown she'itra lo imo, that his mother gave him. B'yom chatunato u'b'yom simchat libo, on the day of his wedding, on the day that his heart rejoiced. Please be patient with me. This is going to take time. Rashi says, who are the Benot Tzion? They're the Jewish people. Benot Tzion, that Mitsuyan means they're marked. They're marked with excellence. And their mark of excellence is Mila, Tfilin, and Tzitzit. You are Benot Tzion, daughters of excellence. And your excellence are these special mitzvot. Go see the crown that his mother made him. Who is the mother? The Bnei Yisrael. And what is the crown that the Bnei Yisrael, that's called mother, made for God? They made an Ol Moed, and they made it with blue and purple and scarlet. Reb Nechunya says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai asked Reb Lazar bar Reb Yossi, did you hear from your father Reb Yossi what is the meaning that the Jewish people are called a mother and they made a crown for God? What does that mean? So Reb Lazar answered, my father said as follows, there was a king who had a daughter, and he loved her very much. He loved her so much, and he called her Biti, my daughter. As it says in Tehillim, Shimi bat uri, my daughter, listen and see. But then his love grew until he called her Achoti, until he called her sister. As the pasuk says, Pitchili Achoti Rayati, open